This is a long demo, so let's not fool around and waste any time. If you're just joining us on the internet, this is kind of in medias res, so you skip the entire opening process here, but you could see on the left I've got a thumbnail page that explores various compositional options for Scrooge McDuck presented in an art history based portrait. Taking the final resolved version and now applying it to an 8.5 by 6.5. It's a portrait setup. In this drawing process, I'm really working rough here, using basic shapes for the layout and not committing to anything. The actual line drawing that I'm going to be working with took 3 entire days, basically, 1 day of which was just placing that hat. So do take care in the drawing of your character. Make sure that you're using symbolism in the rationale for why you're positioning the character the way you're positioning them and what elements you're including. It should all back up the personality. So now 3 days later, we've arrived at our finished drawing. Pretty happy with it. Happy enough anyhow. Now that I've got my drawing finalized, I'm going to make a couple photocopies of this because I want to preserve the actual line drawing. I don't want anything to happen to it. And I'm going to do a tonal study for what is going to end up appearing as a photo reference. So this tonal study is going to essentially be a map for how to apply your lighting. So here's one of the photocopies, establishing where the light source is coming from. I'm going to think of the light coming from just under the hat, because if I have it too high, I'm going to end up with a lot of cast shadows on his face because of the brim of the hat. I want to end up indicating like his intelligence and his enlightenment, all of that sort of thing that we've discussed in art history. But I guess symbolically, it's also like the sun is setting because he's old. All right, so beginning the process, I'm taking the black Conti and just moving down the figure in this kind of vertical attachment method and thinking about like what would the lighting be like. Even though this brim of the hat is peeled up and should be catching the light, the top hat itself is casting a shadow. So I have it darker in there, it rolls in, probably catching light there. This portion of the hat is angled away from the light because of it's cupping up and then kind of falls into light there. So I'm pressing down harder at some points and less at other points so that it can fade. Moving down into the face, I think like, okay, the skull itself, addressing that, it would fall back into shadow here. So looking at the overall sphere of the skull, lighter on that side, darker on this side. Then I think, okay, the eyebrow is casting a shadow on the adjacent skull, the temple. It's casting a shadow underneath. This is kind of rough, you know, like I'm just turning the Conti in order to get the tones that I need. If I end up out of the lines, it's okay. The underside of the eyebrow, that would fall into shadow, deep in the eye socket there a little bit. Have that fade off. That's going to help to embed the eye within the socket. The eyeball itself ends up darker on the side that's away from the light source. The eyebrow would be casting a shadow on the eyeball itself, and we'll just darken the iris here a little bit too. When we actually go to paint, I'll probably end up preserving the iris. That actually looks like I struck the pupil, which is pretty good. This portion on the sideburn, that's puffing out. We've got dark here on the portions of the sideburn feathers that are moving away from the front. The bill here, I'm thinking of this as just a large rectangle. So this side plane would be in shadow because it's away from the light. This would be our mid-tone. This would be our highlighted section. And you notice like kind of like the bridge of what on a human would be a nose, that plane moves away. You can see the contour there. We're going to use that as a guide, kind of triangulating, moving in towards the front of the bill. The upper lip or upper portion of the bill is probably casting a shadow on the lower portion. So we're just basically moving from left all the way down the bottom, vertical attachment. The bill would be casting a shadow on the collar here. the midpoint of the collar falling into shadow. The arm here off to the left in shadow, on the cuff, shadow here, shadow on the back of the hand. As we look towards the fingers, they're facing in towards the light, but the underside of each finger is probably rolling into shadow here. You can darken the kind of quarter mark on the arm. That helps to give it a little bit more volume, so it rolls from highlight into midtone into shadow. You could do the same thing on the cuff. I've left a little bit of light on the back of the arm there. The torso itself, it darkens as it moves in towards the arm. Probably a shadow cast from the collar, because this collar is pretty big. And yeah, I'm essentially only treating the figure here. So I've pretty much gone from top to bottom on the left. Now I'm going to move in towards the center and do the same type of thing. Dark on the top of the hat, work our way down. That's already addressed. Shadow cast from the hat. Quite a bit of dark here from that eyebrow. Same type of thing. The eyeball is in shadow. Iris. A little bit of dark over here. When we get to the glasses, I'm going to think about like rays of light, almost like the directional light stemming off of the sun, and the same thing for the button. So almost like perspective moving in that direction. So I'm just going to kind of slice the Conti across there, moving up towards the sun. So those directional lines hopefully give a sense of like light on a reflective material. I already had kind of done the bill here. Dark on the side of the collar as it moves in towards the button. Probably a shadow cast by the button. And from the collar. Now we move towards the right. There's a lot of light on this side of the hat, so we would keep that brighter. Just darken this edge of the brim. This highlighted element, like the edge rim of the brim. I forgot this over here. This would be really dark because it's angled away from us. Help to pop his skull out a little bit. The arm here would be off in shadow. You know, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but I'm using the broad end of the Conti, just holding it with my index finger and thumb, and that's helping me to like turn the Conti and think in terms of plane. So the arm that's further back, it's helping to pop the torso out because you have the highlight against the dark, and it's also popping the fist out. Again, symbolically, he's tight-fisted because he's cheap. He's also tough. Strong dark on that cuff. Thumb moves away from us. The underside of each finger falls into shadow, but there's going to be a lot of light on that hand. The last thing here, this is actually his foot. His little, his foot. What's this called on a duck? Can't remember. It's just because I'm not able to think and draw at the same time. Spat here. Okay, and that's that. Now in the background, according to my thumbnail here, we're going to really send him into darkness. So I'm just going to coat the back. Some rough vertical lines. Goodbye, son. Okay, there's that. Go around the money bag here. And I can kind of like push my contrast wherever I need it to be lighter, wherever I need it to be darker. So right on the hand, I just want to emphasize that quite a bit, and probably the money bag too. So I'm going to have it darken as it moves down towards him. But I want it lighter around his top hat so that his hat has the freedom to be nice and dark after. So it would probably just really darken as it drops down towards the bottom. So we have a gradient of dark mid-tone into deep dark. The underside of the chair, I'm going to have that really dark. And the arm of the chair itself would probably roll into shadow. This is based on the Victorian era chair that's in the classroom. It's just simplified. The cane here, thinking of it in terms of a cylinder that turns in space. So this side would be lighter, but it rolls into shadow on that side. We'd have a highlight that would, again, roll into shadow on that side. It's kind of clumsy here, but you sort of get the idea. There's probably a shadow that would be cast from the cane onto the arm of the chair. You see how that curves around because it has to emphasize the contour of the actual arm of the chair. It doesn't make sense to have that shadow hug against the cane because, again, that shadow is attached to the chair, not to the cane. So see how that wraps around? It's closer at the point of contact. For the upholstery, we'll probably make that kind of a mid-range dark because I need that to separate itself from the wood. But again, we'll kind of like darken it as we need it to be darker. Like I want to have his feathers here emphasized, so we'll darken that a little bit. Again, it's very rough. Make sure my edges agree, or my sides rather. Dark here. And the wood, apply that. That'll be on the darker side. Or will it? I don't know. Maybe it makes more sense to have the upholstery darker. I kind of think it does. And then the wood can end up being a little lighter, so it's separated from the background. Yeah, something like that. Money bags, they're going to be a little on the lighter side, so we'd have a shadow rolling in towards light, shadow here on the inside of the open part of the bag, and then dark. So this tonal study is now going to serve as our roadmap for painting. It's essentially our photo reference. Here's another version of it. They're essentially accomplishing the same thing, just two examples. So, ready to paint. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in person, or you can email me, and you can always refer back to this video as necessary. All right, see you tomorrow.